On the 29th of August 1941, during the Continuation War, the Finnish army successfully recaptures the strategic city of Viipuri from the retreating Soviet Red Army. The conventional battle was won, yet within hours the city began to collapse. Yet there was no incoming artillery and there were no Soviet planes overhead. Initial military assumptions pointed to standard time-delayed fuses left behind by the Red Army. However, the sheer randomness of these detonations caused concern. The breakthrough occurred near the Moonlight Bridge in Antrea. Finnish combat engineers discovered a hidden 600-kilogram stock of TNT. Wired directly into the explosives was an advanced device that confused the Finns. It contained an intricate array of vacuum tubes and radio components. The bomb was listening. This was the opening salvo of a high-tech radio war. It was a conflict where the only line of defence between the survival of a city and total annihilation was a relentless multi-month transmission of a traditional Finnish folk song. The captured devices were immediately rushed under high security to military headquarters in Mikkeli, where they were handed over to Captain Jouko Pojanpalo, Finland's foremost telecommunications engineer. Working in a makeshift laboratory, he began a forensic inspection of the electronic device to isolate the trigger mechanism. Using precise acoustic tuning forks, he discovered that Finland was facing the Soviet F-10 radio-controlled mine. In 1941, this represented cutting-edge, top-secret remote sabotage technology. The F-10 system was highly sophisticated. It utilised a buried 30-metre antenna connected to a specialised radio receiver. To prevent accidental detonation from atmospheric static or deliberate enemy radio interference, the Soviets did not use a generic radio signal. Instead, the internal detonation circuit was governed by mechanical tuning forks, acting as a physical frequency selector. The F-10 was engineered to exclusively respond to a specific 3-note audio triad. This would have been played by the Soviets on an AM frequency of 715 kHz. When a Soviet operator played those exact 3 notes from a broadcasting station over 100 kilometers away, the radio waves would travel across the Karelian landscape and struck the buried antenna. Inside the mine, the internal tuning forks would begin to vibrate in perfect resonance. This physical vibration closed an electrical contact, delivering an electrical current around the circuit to the blasting cap, triggering the explosive. The explosive section of the mine itself was often rigged with a secondary contact explosive. This was to prevent the Finns from easily digging them up. Worse still, the F-10 system allowed the Soviets to stagger their destruction. By assigning distinct audio triads to different receivers, they could selectively detonate specific buildings at the precise moment. The enemy held the remote control, and the Finns had no conventional means of diffusing the signal. Now, although this technology was obscure, it was known, and the conventional means of combating this was to use high-powered military jammers playing white noise at the correct frequencies. However, the Finnish military possessed no such equipment on the front, and engineering a dedicated military transmitter from scratch would have taken weeks, when they barely had hours. They needed an immediate, unconventional proxy, a sound source so dense, continuous, and structurally chaotic that it could disrupt the F-10's acoustic relays. On August 29th, a mobile broadcasting van belonging to YLE, the Finnish National Radio Service, was ordered into the city centre. Engineers sorted through the inventory of vinyl records, looking for an acoustic profile that could mimic an electric jammer. They bypassed classical arrangements and slow ballads, settling instead on a very fast Finnish folk song, the Sakijärven polka. From an engineering perspective, the choice of a rapid-fire accordion performance was scientifically precise. The Soviet F-10 mines relied entirely on uninterrupted, clear reception of their 3-note audio triad. If the Finns transmitted a song with sparse instrumentation or frequent pauses, the Soviet detonation signal could easily slip through the sonic gaps. Furthermore, if the chosen song accidentally mirrored the Soviet triad, the Finns would trigger their own destruction. They required an unbroken wall of acoustic energy. The polka is characterised by a frantic, non-stop cascade of rapidly changing accordion notes. It features an incredibly dense frequency profile with virtually zero silence and no structural predictability. By tuning the radio van's transmitter to 715 kHz and broadcasting the polka at maximum volume, the Finns effectively blinded the Soviet minds. The physical tuning forks inside the buried F10 receivers were hit with a chaotic, continuous blitz of overlapping accordion frequencies. Unable to cleanly isolate and resonate with the required Soviet detonation chords, the mechanical relays remained frozen. The Finnish accordion had completely blundered the Soviet plan. The deployment of the polka initiated a chess match on AM frequencies. Soviet operators quickly realised their detonation commands were bouncing off of a wall of Finnish folk music. However, the F10 was a robust system. Initial teardowns had revealed that the mine's radio receivers could be reconfigured to operate across 3 entirely separate carrier frequencies. Predictably, the Soviets shifted their transmitters, passing the jammed 715 kHz channel to strike the city from different points on the dial. Fearing that a single YLE mobile van lacked the transmission power to cover the wider spectrum, the Finnish military issued an emergency wartime directive to the Helvar Electronics Company. High-powered 50-watt commercial transmitters were rapidly constructed and rushed to the front lines. The Finns ended up blanketing all 3 potential Soviet frequencies simultaneously. Wherever the Red Army attempted to broadcast their detonation frequencies, the relentless accordion was already occupying the band. Soviet high command, deeply consumed by the broader existential logistics of Operation Barbarossa, simply could not spare the strategic assets, heavy bombers or specialised electronic countermeasures, to locate and destroy the elusive Finnish transmitters. The music played for days, and then weeks, and then months. For the Finnish troops on the ground, this would have a psychological effect. Hearing a fast-paced looping accordion track thousands of times without a single second of intermission possesses all the hallmarks of psychological warfare. Yet, for the soldiers on the ground, the effect was inverted. The troops did not grow to despise the song, they came to revere it. The garrison understood the lethal reality of their situation. In the dead of night, the distant drone of the song echoing from the loudspeakers served as a comforting heartbeat. You see, the sound of the song was actually proof of the acoustic firewall working. If the song suddenly stopped and fell silent, that's when the Finnish troops would be worried. The timeline of this operation was dictated by pure electronic mathematics. The buried Soviet F-10 mines still relied on internal batteries for power. To extend their operational lifespan, the mines utilised a clockwork timer that only activated the radio receiver for a brief window every hour to listen for the signal. Engineers calculated that even under optimal conditions, the batteries would starve to death and lose all function within 3 months. The Finnish High Command, however, relied on absolute certainty rather than mathematical estimates. The transmitters blasted the polka non-stop from August 1941 until February 1942. For over 5 consecutive months, the tracks played on an unbroken permanent loop, completing roughly 86,000 consecutive playbacks. Only when the batteries in the mines were confirmed dead did the music stop. The results of this radio campaign were telling. Before the song began, 17 catastrophic explosions devastated the city. After the Finnish transmitters occupied the frequency, the number of successful detonations dropped to 0. Hundreds of exploded mines were subsequently excavated from the city's foundations by hand. The defence of Viipuri remains one of the most eccentric and practical engineering triumphs in modern military history. It demonstrated that even advanced weapon systems can be neutralised by a basic understanding of acoustic resonance and a very loud accordion. If you enjoyed this dive into the hidden history of music and sound, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click on the playlist on screen at the moment to see more videos like this one. But for now, I've been Glass Gecko, and thank you so much for watching.